If you hear music deep in the Appalachian Mountains late at night, do not go looking for it. I don't care how faint it sounds. I don't care if it sounds beautiful. And I definitely don't care if it sounds like people laughing around a campfire, because according to some locals living near the mountains, there are places where people hear music coming from deep in the woods, despite there being nobody out there. And the people who follow it sometimes disappear for hours, only to come back unable to explain where they went. One man experienced that during a solo drive through rural Appalachia after taking a backroad shortcut late at night. At first he thought he had stumbled across a hidden party somewhere in the forest. A few hours later, he realized there had never been anyone there at all. Welcome to Tales Beyond the Flame. The story was shared online by a man describing an experience he had while driving through a remote mountain region in Appalachia during the early 2000s. He had spent the evening visiting friends in a small town and left later than expected. Rather than taking the longer highway route home, he decided to use a narrow mountain road locals often used as a shortcut. At first, everything felt normal. The road twisted through dense forest with almost no street lights for kilometers. Occasionally he passed abandoned houses sitting far back among the trees. Most looked empty. Some looked like they had been empty for decades. Around midnight, heavy fog began rolling across sections of the road. Visibility dropped sharply. The deeper he drove into the mountains, the more isolated everything felt. No other vehicles, no houses anymore, just trees stretching endlessly into darkness. Then he heard the music. At first he thought it was coming from the radio, old country-style instruments, fiddle music, soft at first, barely noticeable beneath the sound of the engine. But when he turned the radio volume down, the music continued somewhere outside. He slowed the vehicle immediately. The sound drifted faintly through the trees on the passenger side of the road. It sounded distant, like a gathering happening somewhere deep in the forest. Then came laughter. Multiple voices. People talking quietly. The man later admitted his first reaction wasn't fear. It was confusion, because the area around him appeared completely abandoned. No lights, no campsites, nothing. Yet the music sounded unmistakably real. Curious, he pulled the truck onto the roadside and stepped out. The moment he exited the vehicle, the sound became clearer. Fiddle music, soft clapping, voices laughing somewhere deep among the trees. The forest itself felt strangely warm compared to the cold air higher on the road. At first, he considered ignoring it and continuing home, but curiosity kept pulling at him. Eventually, he grabbed a flashlight and followed the sound into the woods. At first, the music seemed close, only a short distance away. But the deeper he walked, the further it seemed to move. Always just ahead, never getting louder, never fully disappearing either. The man continued following the sound for nearly 20 minutes before realizing something unsettling. The forest around him had become completely silent besides the music. No insects, no wind, nothing. Then the laughter stopped all at once. The fiddle music continued alone for several more seconds. Then, suddenly, that stopped too. The silence afterward felt wrong, heavy, like the woods were waiting. That was when he noticed the lights, small orange glows moving faintly between trees ahead of him. Campfire light, or at least that's what he thought at first. Relieved, he started moving toward them faster. Then he heard someone call out from the darkness ahead, "Come on down here." The voice sounded friendly, old, almost amused. And despite not recognizing it, The man later admitted something about the voice felt strangely familiar. The man stopped walking immediately after hearing the voice. At first, he assumed he had finally reached whoever was making the music, but something about the situation suddenly felt wrong. The lights ahead flickered strangely between the trees, not steady like a normal fire. And despite hearing multiple voices earlier, he could no longer hear anyone moving. No footsteps, no conversation, nothing. Then the voice called again, closer this time. "You're almost here." The man raised his flashlight toward the lights ahead. For a brief second, he thought he saw figures standing between the trees near the glow. Tall silhouettes, completely motionless, watching him. Then the flashlight flickered. Only once. But enough to trigger panic, because the woods around him no longer looked familiar. He turned around expecting to see the road behind him. Instead, there was only darkness and endless trees, no headlights, no sign of his truck, nothing. The realization hit instantly. He had walked much further into the forest than he realized. Then the music started again, much louder now. Not ahead of him this time, behind him. The man spun around. The orange lights had disappeared completely. But somewhere deeper in the woods behind him, the fiddle music continued echoing through the trees, slow, uneven, almost warped somehow. Then came laughing, closer than before. Several voices overlapping softly in the darkness. The man later described the sound as people trying too hard to sound human. That was enough. He began walking quickly in the direction he thought the road should be. But every few minutes, the music seemed to shift positions around him, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, once directly beside him. Yet no matter where he pointed the flashlight, he never saw anyone clearly. Then he noticed another disturbing detail. The forest floor ahead contained footprints, bare footprints, dozens of them, all moving in the same direction deeper between the trees. The man followed them briefly with the flashlight before realizing something horrifying. The prints weren't normal. The feet appeared too long, too narrow, and some looked almost backwards. That was when fear became outright panic. He started running. Branches slammed against him as he pushed blindly through the woods. Behind him, the music grew louder, not faster, just louder, as if whatever was making it wanted him to know it was still following. Then suddenly, everything stopped. The music, the laughter, all of it. The man nearly collapsed from relief. And directly ahead through the trees, he saw headlights, his truck, parked exactly where he had left it. He reached the road moments later and drove away immediately without looking back. But according to him, something even stranger happened afterward. When he finally arrived home and checked the time, nearly 5 hours had passed. To him, it had felt like less than one. The following day, he returned to the area with 2 friends, hoping to locate where he had entered the woods. They found the roadside easily, but according to all 3 of them, there were no visible tracks anywhere leading into the forest. No footprints, no broken brush, nothing. Just dense, untouched woods stretching endlessly between the mountains. Locals later gave him a simple explanation after hearing the story. One older man reportedly told him, "If you hear music in these mountains after dark, no you didn't." The man never drove those roads again, and even years later, he claimed that sometimes late at night, he still hears faint fiddle music drifting through the woods outside his house whenever the fog rolls in.